The latest CPI numbers just dropped and the market is reacting. But does this mean we are in a period of stagflation? The dreaded word. Everybody's using it all over Twitter. I will be diving into what we are currently seeing here with the CPI floating along and what that means going forward. So we're going to go check out our quote unquote friends here over at CNBC because they had some interesting, let's call them bullet points about CPI here today. Because CPI, as many of you know, is one of the biggest lies that the government puts out on a daily or monthly basis. Now, CPI, the biggest lie, as I love to say. But the inflation rate, quote, eases to 2.4 in March, lower than expected, core at a 4-year low. I don't know about you guys, but do you feel like core inflation is at a 4-year low? I don't know. We shall see. I know that the main street is not necessarily feeling that. They're feeling the pain of inflation. But I think this is really interesting here. Excluding food and energy, so-called core inflation ran at 2.8% annual rate, having increased 0.1% for the month, and that was the lowest rate of core inflation since March of 2021. Let's read that line again. Excluding food and energy. What are we even talking about here? How could we potentially look at inflation but exclude food, one, and then exclude energy? Because majority of people are going back into the office right now, so they need gasoline, they need energy, they need to have the heat on at home, they need to have the air conditioning on at home, they need internet in order to work on these remote jobs. So literally energy is just a part of everyday life. And if you exclude that and you exclude food, which is essentially essential to live. I don't know about you guys, but I know the fasting is a big fad right now, but I'm not necessarily sure that you could fast forever and completely exclude that from the inflationary readings here. But that's beside the point. Also, the consumer price index fell seasonally adjusted 0.1 in March, putting the 12-month inflation rate at 2.4%, down from the 2.8% in February. So look at this price index. It's allegedly going down, right? But what we all remember is that they changed how they analyze the basket of goods right here in May of 2024. So that basket of goods has changed multiple times since 1971. And what happened in 1971? Obviously, we went off the gold standard. You guys know from coming to these videos frequently that one of my favorite websites of all time is govflation.com. Why do I love this website? Well, it shows the CPI, real return, GDP, dollar supply as the official government headlines. Then it looks at how it was previously calculated. I believe it's like back in 1982, which was just prior to the first change that happened post gold standard. So look at this. December, 10.67%. December was reported at 2.9%. So the differences here in CPI and what is being reported is astronomical. We are seeing essentially them lying to us to our face in order to justify these numbers that they're reporting and justify inflation. So the Kobayashi letter, which I think is one of the best Twitter accounts as well, is looking at the March CPI. Look, it says it falls and it beat expectations. Its marks, of course, CPI is the lowest rate in 4 years. Inflation has cooled despite the trade war. It's interesting, right? Because we're looking at inflation and we're looking at how it is affecting just globally, right? So they said, okay, despite the trade war, well, let's look at how inflation is doing around the globe, right? Because that obviously matters as well. We see other numbers get reported, and we have to understand, where these inflationary numbers come from, because at the end of the day, the US has the global reserve currency. But there is a big but here. But other countries are not all dollarized. Not every country uses the US dollar. I'm here in Mexico currently. They're using the pesos. I got to get out a calculator and do all of that. But what we're seeing is China consumer prices decline for a second straight month. Producer deflation deepens, which is an interesting headline here because of what we just recently saw yesterday. I mean, many of you watched the video that I did yesterday about the trade war. Did Trump lose that? No, right? It was the biggest part of the deal that Trump has done in real time in front of everybody's face since he became president. I think that's even going back to 2016 to 2020. This was one of the biggest and best deals that he's ever done. Now, what were some of the details of that deal specifically? Well, some of the details were that Donnie T himself essentially raised tariffs to every single person around the globe, every single country. They did it to even countries that didn't even have population, and they got questioned about it, right? And their response was, well, we don't want anybody to have some sort of workaround to try to avoid these tariffs. Then what happened? He got a 10% tariff across the board, which is a 400 to 500% increase on every single country easily. And he exposed China for being the true bad player that they are. So, mission accomplished, it seemed. But with that, we're still seeing consumer prices fall in China, at least from the last month, right? This whole tariff situation was just a blip in the radar, right? It wasn't something that happened and, it took months on end. This was something that happened very quickly, all within a week or two. And then they switched and changed. So China's consumer prices decline for a second straight month. Producer deflation deepens. China's consumer price index fell 0.1 year over year compared to a flat reading expected by economists polled by Reuters. Producer prices fell for the 29th straight month, dropping 2.5% year over year earlier. So it is kind of following suit here, similar to the United States. But, with inflation falling, right? Trump posted on Truth Social yesterday, buy the dip, before he then, flipped the switch off on the tariffs. Pretty timely, right? He did all that, and then he's been yelling at Jerome Powell to cut interest rates. Well, let's go and check and look at what the percentage chance this is going to happen. See, I normally don't like to look at these things because the Fed is going to do what the Fed is going to do. But I think it's interesting on how much fluctuation we are seeing on a day-to-day basis, literally a day-to-day basis. We are seeing 30% swings in this chart. But, we saw a 3% increase from yesterday, where it was about a 17, 18% chance that the Fed is cutting interest rates, now raising to about 21% chance that they're going to cut in May. At the end of the day, I think that this just shows that people have no idea what the Fed is going to do, right? Because Powell has been beating the drum. Inflation is not over yet. He's well aware that inflation is not over yet. And is the Doge, what they're doing, are the tariffs, is this going to help, right, going forward? I guess time will tell. A lot of these policies, it takes time to see the results and the fruits of their labor, right? But will, lowering those interest rates, will that potentially change everything here? Will it open the floodgates theoretically? Will we see, consumers really drastically start spending? But I think it's interesting the way the market has reacted. I teased it a little bit at the beginning, but the S&P 500, look at this tweet from this guy. Look, I know I'm a Bitcoin guy, but he said the S&P 500 is as volatile as Bitcoin now. It's crazy because of what all is happening here with Donald Trump and his policies. We're seeing volatility that we've never seen in the market, strictly because there is so much unknown, right? So I love my buddy Dylan LeClaire's comment under here that SPY is too volatile to be reliable store of value. But still, I mean, look at this chart. You don't see anything like this ever. This is unprecedented territory of what we're seeing, this giant spike up. But it's all because of this table here, folks, right? I'm not going to bore you with the details, but they're looking at all items 3.1%, food 2.5. They're looking at energy 12.4%, gasoline 16.8%. But they're neglecting these numbers and saying that everything is okay. They're neglecting that. Like, how do you have a 12% energy increase and a 17% gasoline increase, and then we're reporting a 2.4% CPI? Strictly just doesn't make sense, right? Like, these numbers that they're reporting, the baskets of goods, they keep just moving the goalpost down and down and down, kicking the can down the road. And they're lying to you, to your face. They're realizing that the market is reacting dramatically to all this because of all the unknowns here. They truly have no idea what's going on. And I mean, honestly, it is very difficult to understand what is going on here as well. And we're seeing the market react already. The SPY or SPX down 3.5% already on the day. I mean, it's absolutely bananas here. Market's been open for just a couple hours, and we're seeing it down 3.5% to start the day. That's, like I said, like Eric said over here, we're seeing volatility in the SPY that we don't normally see. We're seeing things and the market swing up and down, and things that we've never seen in just the general market terms. So these are things that are just truly unprecedented. I think that we're going to continue to see these giant market swings with as much unknown as we have in the market. And, we're going to have a mix of opinions, whether inflation has cooled, the trade war, what is going to happen here? Is it over? I think there's going to be a lot to follow along here in the next few weeks, to say the very least, and the rest of the year. So smash the like button, hit the subscribe button with the bell notification so you guys know when I'm going live, and you can join the chat because I would love to hear some of y'all's opinions. And thank you guys all for tuning in to this great live stream.